Shalom from Beit and thank you for joining me in the study of Parashat Vayeshev. So today we will try to understand Yosef's challenges, the background for the entire terrible story of brothers selling their own brother, and to try to see the secret of survival that Yosef really reveals to us. So the Torah states the following: אלה תולדות יעקב, יוסף בן 17 שנה היה רואה את אחיו בצאן. So these are the generations of Yaakov. It's really Yosef. It seems to be that the narrative is trying to make us focus that the most important son is Yosef. And Yosef is 17 שנה, he is 17 years old, energetic, vibrant. He was the shepherd, היה רואה את אחיו בצאן, והוא נער את בני בלעה ואת בני זלפה נשי אביו. This is a bit ambiguous. We are not sure exactly if he was supervising the other brothers or he was really hanging out with the other brothers. ויבא יוסף את דיבתם רעה אל אביהם. Whatever he did, he in a way brought the evil report on his brothers, which obviously, even from the get-go, even without the colorful dress that Yaakov gave to Yosef, and without anything else, just reading the narrative, we see that there are a few issues here. It seems to be that Yosef is the chosen one. He is the focus of this narrative. He is the generations of Yaakov. That's A. B, we see that he has a very interesting role with the brothers. He is with some brothers, then he's hanging out with other brothers, and then it seems to be that he's not exactly their friend because he brings bad report on them. So it seems to be that he will not be the most likable brother within the brothers. וישראל אהב את יוסף מכל בניו כבן זקונים הוא לו. And Israel, Yaakov, loved Yosef from all his children. Here is a very direct fact that Yaakov loved Yosef from all the other children. כי בן זקונים לו, because he was the youngest. Now we know he was not the youngest. Benjamin was the youngest. But because Yosef was the firstborn to Rachel, to his beloved wife, I assume that he saw him as like the oldest son or the most favorite son. ועשה לו כתונת פסים. So in order to show everyone that he loves Yosef more than the other brothers, he made some kind of a recognition that everyone would know that, which obviously raised the question of how can you do that? This is a first mistake that no parent should do, and obviously we would expect Yaakov to understand it. ויראו אחיו כי אותו אהב אביהם מכל אחיו. So now we have the reaction. The brothers see that Yaakov favorites Yosef, וישנאו אותו, and they hate him. You can look at the language of the Torah, is very harsh. לשנוא, to hate, not that they disliked, they really hated Yosef. ולא יכלו דברו לשלום. And they couldn't even speak to him. Now you can imagine, this is a big family, 13 children, 12 boys, 1 girl, Dina. They all together eating breakfast, lunch or dinner, and everyone talk with each other, and when it comes to Yosef, no one speaks to him. No one speaks to him. So there is tremendous love from the father, but tremendous hate from the brothers. And then, ויחלום יוסף חלום. Yosef start dreaming. ויגד לאחיו. And it's interesting. Even though Yosef is being hated, he's sharing his dream with his brothers. ויוסיפו עוד שנוא אותו. They continue and they added even more hate towards him. ויאמר עליהם שמעו נא החלום הזה אשר חלמתי. Please listen to me, I have a dream and I would like to share with you. And we all know that the meaning of the dream, at least that's how the brothers interpret it, and probably that was the truth, is that they're going to submit themselves to him. He's going to be the king, and they're going to be his slaves. You can imagine that that obviously did not add anything to any love towards Yosef. When the brothers hear that this son, Yaakov's son, who is definitely being the favorite and has those dreams, they're not going to like him whatsoever. So if I will try to look at what's going on at Yaakov's family, we can see tremendous tension. And there is some kind of a triangle. Yosef versus the brothers, and even within the brothers, we have the children of Leah and the children of Bilhah and Zilpah. So one area or one realm of tension, it's between Yosef and the different groups within the brothers. Then we have Yosef and Yaakov, which there is tremendous love. Then we have one more line that it's not that clear from the narrative, which is Yaakov versus the other children. We don't see that the other children approach their father and say to him, Father, Abba, what's going on here? Did you make any decision that Yosef is going to be the only heir? He's going to be the king? What should be our position? There is no conversation whatsoever between Yaakov and his children. Which, by the way, just as a side note, we already see some kind of tension between Yaakov and the other children, especially after the story of Dinah that we read in Parashat Vayishlach a few weeks ago, that Yaakov chastises children, they react, they respond to him, and then there is dead silent. There is no conversation. Also after what Reuven did, also no conversations. Yaakov hears about it and does not say anything. So we can definitely elaborate on this very interesting silence between Yaakov and the other brothers, but it seems to be that the narrative does not want to tell us what exactly is the nature of the relationship between Yaakov and the other children. We definitely know that Yaakov loves Yosef. So we have this triangle of tremendous tension, of love and hate, and it's all in one family. And then Yaakov says something very interesting to Yosef. Vayomer lo, Yaakov says to Yosef, Lech na, please go, re'e et shlom achecha ve'et shlom hatzon v'hashiveni davar. Please see the peace or the harmony within your brothers, and also tell me how the flock is doing, and let me know. Vayishlacheu me'emek Chevron vayavo Shchema. So he sends him from the valley of Hebron, and he comes to Shechem, to Nablus. Now, this pasuk also we can definitely elaborate on it, but this is not really the subject matter of this class. But there is something very interesting. We are not sure, or we don't really know how much Yaakov felt regarding the tension in the family. I would assume that when he sat with everyone for dinner and he saw that no one speaks to Yosef, I would assume that he sensed that something is wrong. But it might be that he did not. And he tells Yosef, go ahead. Your brothers took the flock somewhere. I want you to check on them, see how are they doing. See how are they doing? They don't want to speak to him. What exactly Yaakov had in mind when he sent Yosef to see how his brother's doing? And also, many of the commentators are raising the question, Hebron is not in a valley. It's on the mountain. What does it mean, Emek Hebron, the valley of Hebron? So this is something for all of us to think about. But let's continue on. וימצאהו איש והנה טועה בשדה וישאלהו האיש לאמור מה תבקש? So there is a person who meets Yosef on the way, and Yosef is lost. Yosef has no clue where his brothers are, so he's looking for them. Which, by the way, shows some determination. Because Yosef could have gone home, tell Yaakov, dear father, I tried to find them, I have no clue where they are. You know what, maybe I'll try tomorrow. But no, Yosef seems to be very dedicated, very determined, very committed to fulfill his father's task. ויאמר, את אחי אנוכי מבקש. אגידה נא לי איפה הם רואים. Yosef says to this stranger, I'm looking for my brothers. It's very interesting. The language. Yosef still considers them as his brothers. They don't talk to him. They don't even say hello. Leave alone, how are you doing? He still considers them as achai, my brothers. Please tell me, he tells the person, where are they? ויאמר האיש נסו מזה. So this person says, oh, they left. כי שמעתי אומרים, I overheard them saying, נלכה דותיינה. They went to a different place. Again, Yosef has an opportunity to say, okay, my father sent me to place A. Now they are in place C. I have no idea where is place C. I'll go home. No, Yosef goes to the other place to find his brothers. וימצאם בדותן, and he found them in Dotan, in that place. ויראו אותו מרחוק ובטרם יקרב עליהם ויתנכלו אותו לעמיתו. They see him from a distance, probably because of his very colorful coat, and before he even approaches them, they conspire to kill him. That's what the narrative says. Not to punish him, not to send him back, to kill him. So Yosef comes with this commitment to fulfill his father's mission, to see how are they doing, to show friendship and love and brotherhood. When they see him, they see an opportunity. Now he's not under their father's protection. Let's kill him. ועתה לכו ונהרגהו. Let's kill him. And they say to each other, ויאמרו איש אל אחיו, and they say one to his brother, and you can see that between themselves they are brothers, but not to Yosef. They don't see Yosef as their brother. They see him as a stranger that they want to kill. הנה בעל החלומות על הזה בא. Here, the dreamer is coming along. Look how they approach Yosef. Yosef looked at them as his brothers 3 times. Yaakov says to him, see, how are your brothers doing? That's the way he tells the stranger. Then he sees his brothers. But the brothers definitely don't see Yosef as their brother. They see him as a stranger, as the dreamer, as someone who basically is a major threat on their future and their destiny. ועתה, and now, לכו ונהרגהו. Let's kill him. ונשליכהו באחד הבורות, and we'll just throw him in one of the pits. ואמרנו, and we will say, חיה רעה אכלתו. A beast ate him up. ונראה מה יהיו חלומותיו. And then let's see if his dreams can come true. He's going to be dead. Now, let's pause here for a second. We can see also something very interesting that the narrative is telling us immediately, without any commentators. It seems to be that Yosef is being defined by his dreams. These 2 dreams that he talks about, a transformation, a financial transformation from being a shepherd to grain and wheat and barley. He is, in a way, announcing the AI revolution, a financial revolution, the industrial revolution, which the brothers don't know what to do with it. And the second dream is about kingship. So Yosef is being defined by his brothers because of his dreams. They feel threatened. They name him Baal HaChalomot, the dreamer, not my brother. And by saying that, by doing that, by stigmatizing Yosef as the dreamer, so let's just silence those dreams. Let's kill him, throw him, and make him disappear. That's what the brothers, that's their approach towards their own brother Yosef. And then, we all know the story. Instead of killing him, Reuven convincing them just to throw him to the pit, thinking maybe he will be able to save them, but until he comes and goes, they already sell him. So now let's try to understand the narrative. ויוסף הורד מצרימה, Yosef was brought down to Egypt. ויקנהו פוטיפר סריס פרעה שר הטבחים איש מצרי. So who bought him? Potiphar, who was a minister, maybe the cook, or maybe the minister of the entire food industry that Egypt had. So he bought Yosef from the Ishmaelim, from the Ishmaelites. Asher horidu shama, that they brought Yosef to Egypt. Now, let's pause here for a second. Let's think about Yosef's life until now. 17 years old, a successful young adult, loved by his father, hated by his brothers. His father trusts him that he will do the job, he will do the mission, he will fulfill the mission, he will see the peace or the harmony in his brothers. Yosef tries everything he can, he's committed, he's determined, he had opportunities to run away from that mission and to even justify it, He's trying to do it, but he can't fulfill it because the brothers look at him as the dreamer, a threat. Let's kill him. At the end, they sell him. If you were Yosef, and now you are being sold as a slave into the Egyptian society and culture, and you had all this experience from your home, I would assume that most of us will just say the following. You know what? I tried. For 17 years I tried. I tried to fulfill my father's mission. I tried to show my brothers I'm not a threat. Maybe we can work together. And you know what? Now I'm a slave in Egypt. This is an opportunity for me to start fresh. Disconnect from my family. Concentrating on my future, my destiny. I'm going to shape my own destiny by myself. That's what we probably would assume. But take a look. ויהי השם את יוסף, האיש מצליח, ויהי בבית אדוניו המצרי. So Yosef started as a slave, but Hashem basically bestows some kind of a blessing on Yosef, and whatever he touches, it becomes gold. וירא אדוניו כי השם איתו, his masters can see that whatever Yosef touches is becoming gold, and everything is so successful. וכל אשר הוא עושה, השם מצליח בידו. וימצא יוסף חן בעיניו. So Yosef found favor in his master's eye, which is very interesting. He definitely did not find favor in his brother's eye, but the master, Potiphar, his master, looks at Yosef and says, this slave, is not only a successful slave and brings me tremendous success, I like him. וישרת אותו ויפקידהו על ביתו וכל יש לו נתן בידו. Basically, Yosef from a slave becomes the CEO of the house. He manages everything. Kol yesh lo, everything that Potiphar had, he gave to Yosef to handle. Full trust. ויהי מאז הפקיד אותו בביתו ועל כל אשר יש לו, and from the time that Potiphar appointed Yosef to run the house, ויברך השם את בית המצרי בגלל יוסף. Hashem blessed this Egyptian house because of Yosef. ויהי ברכת השם בכל אשר יש לו בבית ובשדה. And God's blessing was implemented everywhere, in his house, in the fields, in the orchards. Everything that Potiphar owned became successful. ויעזוב כל אשר לו ביד יוסף. Now the narrative reiterates the point that Potiphar left everything in the hand of his slave. By the way, we just need to understand ancient times. Slaves, to trust them to such extent, Potiphar fully understand that this Yosef is a special person. ולא ידע איתו מאומה, and he didn't know anything about what Yosef does. Full trust. כי אם הלחם אשר הוא אוכל, but rather the bread that he eats. Now, here we need a bit of interpretation. The Egyptians will not eat bread with the Hebrews. We know that from later Parashat as well. And it might be that that's what the verse is trying to hint to us, that only the bread Yosef couldn't touch. Or there is another interpretation which will lead us, obviously, to the next chapter, which is, it's a reference to his wife, which means Yosef could do everything he wanted besides being with his master's wife. ויהי יוסף יפה תואר ויפה מראה. And Yosef is a handsome man. Now, let's pause here, and now let's portray Yosef. So, from someone who is loved by his father, hated by his brothers, being treated terribly, being sold as a slave, now he is the CEO of that house, running and managing everything. Full trust. He's a young man, handsome man, successful person. Yes, he is still a slave, but his position is incredible. It seems to be that Yosef can handle himself, can build his future, and become successful despite of his family. Disconnected from his family. Yosef is building Yosef's life in Egypt. But then, the challenge. And we will talk about this challenge because it fits exactly to the last portrait of Yosef. So after these things that Yosef becomes so successful and he's handsome and he's vibrant and he's young and he's full of energy. His master's wife started to seduce Yosef. Yosef said to her, he says to his master's wife, I can't do that. I can't break the trust that your husband, my master, has in me. He gave me everything. We are equal. Basically, we are equal. Me and the master of the house, which is your husband, we are equal. He gave me everything. But he told me, don't touch my wife. Because you are his wife. How can I do something so horrible and I will sin to God? So now let's pause here for a second. Yosef, in a way, has the opportunity of his life. Just imagine. Let's write another story. Yosef says yes to his master's wife. They keep it in secret. They're waiting for the opportunity to get rid of the master. And he, Yosef, will be the master of the house. He will have great life. He will have all this property. He will have a position in the Egyptian government. He can form his own destiny. But he refuses. Vayema'en. And he brings moral reasons. He says, I can't break the trust that your husband entrusted in me. A, B, I can't do it to God. Yosef, and you can see from the narrative, is still connected to his father's house of morals and ethics, despite the way that he was treated by his brothers with zero morality, zero ethics, zero compassion and mercy. But then it doesn't stop there. She tried to seduce him every day. The pressure that she puts on him. Don't forget, he's still her slave. And he says no. And then that day came, this day arrived. And Yosef came to the house to do whatever he had to do. And there is no one at home. But she is there, and she basically caught him by his garment, and she says to him, you're going to be with me. He took off his coat quickly, left it in her hands, and ran away. Pause here. First, we see how the narrative is playing on the idea of the clothes, of the dress or the coat. Yosef's coat was the recognition of his success by his father. It's also, in a way, the cause of temptation to some extent, and his master's wife is catching it. She caught on it, and he left it. By leaving the coat in her hands, it's basically leaving a proof that he did something to her, and he runs away. You can understand that Yosef now took a tremendous risk, knowing that he did the right thing, but knowing that he can get into troubles. And that's exactly what's happened. When she saw that he just left the coat in her hands and he ran away, so she comes up with his story. He came to rape me. When I start screaming and yelling, he left the coat and he ran away. Yosef is in troubles. We have a problem. Yosef is now outside of the house. His master's wife has the coat. She has the proof. She has the smoking gun. And Yosef? Look how she treats him now. Ish, Ivri, Eved. He's a slave. He's a Hebrew. He came here to mock me or to rape me, and I'm the righteous one. He's the bad guy. We need to treat him again in a very inappropriate way. Yosef basically instead of what? Instead of adjust to the culture and to the Egyptian society, he still keeps himself in his father's house. Morality, ethics, and self-sacrifice when it's needed. That's Yosef. Now, before we continue, let's see the Midrash לקח טוב. ויהי אחר הדברים האלה. If you remember, after Yosef became the CEO of the house, after these things, his master's wife starts seducing him. Says the Midrash, אחר הרהורי דברים, מה הרהור? יוסף אמר, כשהייתי בבית אבא, היה אבא רואה איזה מנה יפה שהייתה שם, והיה נותנה לי. והיו אחי נותנים בי עין רעה. עכשיו אני ברווחה? Says Yosef, according to the Midrash. ויהי אחר הדברים האלה, after these things, it's not what we said, that Yosef was so successful and then she tried to seduce him. It's something else. Yosef had some thoughts. He wondered. He says, when I was in the house, sitting at dinner, my father would pick the best piece of meat and will give it to me because he loved me. But the brothers, they all looked at my piece of meat and they start saying things about me, and they looked at that with an evil eye. They looked at that and they were jealous, and whenever I ate a little piece of that meat, I felt like I had to choke because they looked at me. But now, everyone is happy for me. Maybe this is my family, says Yosef. אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא, חייך שאני מגרה בך את הדוב. Hashem says, that's your thoughts? You think that you feel here and live here in Egypt better than in your father's house despite your brothers? I'm going to test you. I'm going to show you that you can't live here in tranquility and in peace and harmony with the Egyptian society. But take a look at this Midrash. This Midrash is beautiful. Yosef is a very thoughtful person. He looks at everything that happened to him and he says to himself, you know what? I'm not with my family, but you know what? I'm not sure I miss them so much. They treated me horribly, and here I'm being treated beautifully. Says Hashem, don't think like that. Maybe they treat you beautifully, but they're going to challenge you. So, Yosef, you will need to make a decision. Do you want to be an Egyptian? Or you want to be continued to be part of Yaakov's family? The Ramban, Nachmanides says, Vayemaen, when he refused for the seduction of his master's wife, ויאמר אל אשת אדוניו, סיפר הכתוב, the narrative tells us, כי מאין לעשות כרצונה, אף על פי שהייתה גבירתו, אשת אדוניו הוא ירא ממנה. The narrative is telling us that he refused to her seduction, even though she was his master's wife and he was afraid of her. כי היה ירא את השם יותר, וזה טעם אל אשת אדוניו. Yosef, despite everything, still was able to continue to carry the idea of being a God-fearing person in a society that has nothing to do with it. If you remember at the beginning of Lech Lecha, when Avram went to Egypt and he had to tell Sarah to lie for him and to say that she's his sister, when Pharaoh asked Avram, why did you do that? Avraham said, אין יראת אלוקים במקום הזה. No one here is God-fearing person. It probably continued. But Yosef was able to continue and to maintain this idea of being a God-fearing person and to have the power to say no. And then the Babylonian Talmud in Sotah. Babylonian Talmud in Sotah said something which has tremendous insight. ותתפסהו בבגדו לאמור שכבה עמי, when his master's wife caught him by the coat and says to him, you are going to come with me. What gave him the power, the strength to say no? Says the Babylonian Talmud. באותה שעה באה דיוקנו של אביו ונראתה לו בחלון. The minute that Joseph was about to be with his master's wife, he saw the image of his father in the window. אמר לו יוסף, you can all hear probably the echo. Yaakov says to Yosef, my dear son, Yosef, עתידין אחיך שיכתבו על אבני אפוד ואתה ביניהם. There is going to be a time that all your brothers will be listed on the breastplate of a Cohen, all the tribes. And your name is going to be among them. רצונך שימחה שמך מביניהם, ותיקרא רועה זונות? תכתיב רועה זונות יאבד הון? Yaakov says to Yosef, you need to make a decision. Do you want to be with her and to have the pleasure and the fulfillment of all your immediate dreams and perhaps being very successful in Egypt, but to totally disconnect yourself from your father's house and from your brothers, who I know did not act like your brothers? But there's going to be a time that you will be together in a harmonized way. By being with her, you're going to erase your name, your history, and your future for the present time. Choose. Miyad vateshev be'itan kashto. Immediately Yosef made a decision which cost him personally. It was painful because after that he was accused of being a rapist, thrown into jail, being forgotten there for an additional 2 more years. He suffered a lot for that decision. But Yosef understood that there is no place like home. Despite the hate from his brothers, despite the animosity, despite all the tribulations and the self-sacrifice that he had to do, he wanted to stay with his father's house. There are so many lessons that we can learn, but I would share probably one, which I think is very important. We always need to ask ourselves as parents, as teachers, as rabbis, as grandparents, great-grandparents, how do we create this image for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, friends, that image of conscience, of morality and ethics, that when our children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren will face a moral decision, they will see our image. They will know our expectations. They will know what we really would like for them to do, and they will find the inner strength to make the right decision. I think it begins with a steady, strong home. So they know that wherever they go, whatever they do, whatever the temptation is, they would like to be always connected to home, to what they were taught. So there is a challenge here, but I am sure that we all can raise up to the challenge. Shabbat Shalom.